Welcome to this explainer on the topic of conscience. If you're gearing up for your A-level religious studies exams, this is designed to give you absolutely everything you need to know all in one place.
We all know that feeling, right? That little inner voice that tells you you've done something wrong. But what is it really? And where on earth does it come from? Well, that simple question is what this whole topic is about.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with a core debate. Then we'll dive deep into our two key thinkers, Aquinas and Freud. After that, we'll put their ideas head-to-head and wrap up with all the essential evaluation points you'll need for your essays. Okay, let's get right into it. The whole study of conscience really starts with this one fundamental debate about where it comes from. It all boils down to this single question. Is conscience something innate, hardwired into us by God? If it is, then it carries divine authority, and we should probably listen to it. Or is it something we just pick up from our environment, our parents, our culture, our society? Because if that's the case, maybe it's just a social construct we can question or even ignore. To really dig into this, we're going to focus on two absolute giants who represent these opposing sides perfectly. In one corner, we've got the 13th century theologian Thomas Aquinas, and in the other, the 20th century psychologist Sigmund Freud. First up, Aquinas. Now, what's so interesting about his view is that he doesn't see conscience as some kind of mysterious inner voice whispering secrets. Nope. For him, it's all about reason. The key to understanding Aquinas is this one concept, ratio. He argued that because humans are made in the image of God, we've all been given this incredible tool of reason. It's not God whispering in our ear, it's our God-given ability to think through moral problems logically. And this process is laid out beautifully here. For Aquinas, it's a three-step journey. We all start with synderesis. That's just our natural, inbuilt desire to do good things. Then we engage our ratio, using our reason to figure out a specific situation. And the final step is conscientia. That's the actual reasoned moral judgment we land on. It's a deliberate, logical act. This quote from his masterpiece, the Summa Theologica, just sums it up perfectly. Conscience isn't a passive thing we have, it's an active thing we do. It's the act of applying our moral knowledge to a real-life problem. So if conscience is all about reason, what happens when we get it wrong? Well, Aquinas says it's down to ignorance, and he says there are two types. Vincible ignorance is when you make a mistake, but frankly, you should have known better. You're on the hook for that one. But invincible ignorance is when you genuinely couldn't have known any better, so you're not held responsible for the mistake. Okay, let's switch gears completely. We're going to jump forward about 700 years from theology straight into psychology. Sigmund Freud just throws the idea of reason out the window and argues that conscience is actually a product of our hidden unconscious mind. For Freud, our conscious mind, the bit we're actually aware of, is just the tip of the iceberg. The real action is happening way down below the surface, in the vast unconscious, where all these powerful drives and conflicts are shaping who we are and what we feel. He famously split our personality into three parts. You've got the id, our primitive, unconscious desires. Then there's the ego, our conscious self that has to navigate reality. And then there's the superego. Now, this is the internalized voice of our parents and society, full of rules and you shoulds. For Freud, the superego is the conscience. So here's the crucial point. That nagging feeling of guilt we talked about at the start? For Freud, that's just the mental tension you feel when your ego gives in to the desires of the id and disappoints the internalized authority of your superego. Guilt isn't a sign you're being irrational. It is the conscious experience. So where does this superego even come from? Freud traced it all the way back to early childhood. He argued it develops between the ages of 3 and 6, during what he called the phallic stage. This is where a child's complicated relationship with their parents causes them to internalize a powerful sense of authority, creating that inner voice of guilt. Okay, so we've got our two theories on the table, Aquinas' God-given reason versus Freud's psychological guilt machine. Now let's put them in direct conversation on the key issues you're actually going to get tested on. This table gives you a fantastic snapshot for comparison. On the role of guilt, Aquinas sees it as just a side effect of being irrational, while for Freud, it's the main event. On God, Aquinas sees God as the source of our reason, but Freud dismisses God as a psychological illusion. And on decisions, Aquinas champions a free, rational process, whereas Freud thinks we're just determined by unconscious forces we can't control.
Let's look at that guilt debate a little closer. For Aquinas, the process is super clear. You use reason to figure out the right thing to do. If you then act against that reason, you feel guilt. It's a consequence of the mistake, it's not the conscience itself.
Freud flips this completely on its head. He'd argue that the experience of guilt isn't a result of conscience, it is the conscience, making itself known. That raw, often illogical feeling of shame is the superego in action.
So, who's got the stronger argument? In this final section, we'll cover the critical strengths and weaknesses of each theory, giving you those juicy AO2 evaluation points you need to build a top-grade essay.
A key strength of Aquinas' theory is that it neatly explains why good people can disagree on moral issues. The reason just leads them to different conclusions. It also allows for us to learn and get better at moral reasoning over time. The weaknesses? Well, critics say it's maybe a bit too optimistic about how rational we are, and it doesn't really capture that immediate gut punch feeling we often associate with conscience.
Freud's biggest strength is that his theory is grounded in that powerful, real-world experience of guilt. It also does a great job explaining why morality can be so different between cultures and families. The big weaknesses, though, are all about his methods. His theories were based on a tiny sample of his patients, and as the philosopher Karl Popper pointed out, they're unfalsifiable. There's no way to test or prove them wrong, which makes them feel pretty pseudoscientific.
So, the huge question you might want to argue in an essay really comes down to this. Is conscience a real, distinct faculty inside of us, a tool for reasoning given by God, like Aquinas believed? Or is conscience just a handy label we use, an umbrella term for a whole mix of psychological guilt, cultural conditioning, and our upbringing, just as Freud would suggest?
And that's where we'll leave it. The next time you feel that inner nudge, that pang of guilt, or that sense of duty, you can ask yourself, is this my God-given reason at work, or is it just the echo of my childhood superego? The choice between the theologian and the psychologist is now all yours.